By popular demand, this week's episode of Brutal Shmups is the top 5 hardest shooters on the Neo Geo. And I can't wait to show you the awesome selection of gorgeous looking, incredible sounding, and ass-kicking games that I've picked out. So let's jump right into it. My first pick is one that probably everybody could see coming because it's universally known as an incredibly hard game. Developed by ACOM, it's also one of the most graphically impressive on the system, and that's saying something. And that game is Polestar. It has the most iconic intro of any shooter on the system and an epic soundtrack that you have to hear to believe. So let's check it out. First things first, this has got to be the most awesome looking game on the Neo Geo, at least as far as shooters go. The level designs are up there with Metal Slug for some of the coolest, most creative on the system. Check out this fire level with the singularity in the background and castles of flame shooting pulses of purple energy up into space. The downside is that every enemy and background has so much animation that when things get busy, it can slow the gameplay down to a crawl. Normally I can't stand slowdown in a game, but it seems to work for Polestar, and it gives you a chance to see all the detail they squeezed into every nook and cranny. The screen scrolls very slowly with plenty of time to take everything in. If you didn't know any better, you'd think it's called Polestar because just about everything in this game is pulsating, from the organic walls of caverns to just about every slimy creature. The animation is full of life. If you enjoy the sight of bursting globules and alien secretions, then this game is for you. In reality, the game is named after Vangelis' song, of which the composer was a huge fan. If you know and enjoy Vangelis' work, you'll be right at home here with some amazing atmospheric music, and you can clearly hear the influence. It's one of the best aspects of the game and will make you feel like you're part of this alien world, which is a good or bad thing, depending on how much you enjoy oozing membranes. While the game certainly copies R-Type with what looks like the Force Pod and its ability to absorb fire, it removes the ability and strategy of being able to jettison the pod, so it's permanently stuck to your ship, unless you release it as a bomb and lose it completely. Polestar also has the slower, plodding-like nature of R-Type, with more emphasis on proper positioning and use of your charge attacks versus straight dodging bullets, minus the strategy of the Force Pod. The controls are quite simple, with the single fire button serving as the regular and charge shot, as well as a secondary shot if tapped very rapidly. Each weapon produces something unique and useful, such as this shield which can destroy enemies and is ideal for certain areas, or these homing lasers that make it easier to take out enemies behind you. Once you get the hang of things, you're treated to a visual and oral tour de force with massive motherships, creative levels with gorgeous backgrounds, and unique enemies on every level. Combined with the atmospheric, fantasy-like music, Polestar really takes you away to an alien world and feels like a living, breathing universe. It's a really tough game, but certainly not as difficult as R-Type, nor Viewpoint for that matter, but not many are. It takes practice to memorize in spots, but it's very surmountable, and once you're powered up, you'll be surprised how brisk and fun the levels can be. This game is a stunner, and if the slower gameplay isn't your cup of tea, it's worth checking out for the experience alone. Instead of yapping on until the end here, I'm just going to shut up so you can experience a few cool moments of the game and the soundtrack. I've been looking forward to this next pick the most because it's my all-time favorite shooter on the Neo Geo, and that game is Blazing Star. Not only is it super fun to play, but it's got some great music, some killer bosses, and a whimsical flair that you can only get from Japan. It also has the most awesomely disturbing final boss in shoot 'em up history. You have to see it to believe it. On top of that, it's notorious for its horrible English translations that's resulted in famous internet memes. So, are you ready to fail it? Yep, Blazing Star began the infamous meme, "You fail it. If you don't manage to kill a boss in the designated time limit, the battle and stage ends and lovingly tell you how much you suck. You fail it. Your skill is not enough. See you next time. Okay, I love you, bye-bye." But that's just the start of what's to be many hilarious lines, and it keeps things lighthearted. Some of them come out so funny that I wonder if it was done on purpose to give you a good laugh. The start of each boss battle is usually prime time for a great one-liner. The big one is closing in. Oh my, what's that? How huge that is! Oh, I'll bet. Brace yourself. I'm ready. Give it to me. It's coming. Destroyed the space colony. Yes, please destroy it before it comes. It's also always making fun of you or encouraging you. Nuggets like, "Are you serious? Hey, poor player. Waking up now. Get it more. Oh yeah, give it to me, baby. Get it, get it." The game is a real talker in general. Every time you pick up a bonus, a power-up, or anything that flies onto the screen like a lucky point, it'll tell you. I find it endlessly charming, but your mileage may vary after hearing "bonus" for the 100th time. All jokes aside, biggest takeaway is that the game is great to look at, has some fantastic tunes and boss music, and most importantly is great fun to play. It moves at a faster pace than their previous game, Polestar, and it makes for a more frenetic experience, which is more my cup of tea. The first levels are actually quite easy compared to Polestar. It isn't until you reach at least level 5, but especially 6, where the game pulls off the training wheels and will wreck you until you get good. Sure, this is an arcade game, and you respawn where you die, so anyone can credit feed it until they finish it, but taken in the terms of difficulty of a 1cc, or within a set of limited continues, the final levels and bosses can kick your ass like nobody's business. Speaking of bosses, damn if this one isn't possibly my favorite of all time. Forget fighting a mothership, how about fighting a fleet? And its mothership. You've got these smaller ships coming in and out of the screen to destroy you while the larger boss intervenes. After taking out a few of these ships and the purple interloper, the main mothership gets involved, coming in and out of the picture until it's time to make your final run to finish it off. You'll need your dodging A game for this boss to come out without hitting that continue, especially this final part with the giant pink shots. I usually lose a life here before I can finish it off. Another really cool feature of the game is the huge variety of ships you can choose from, all with their own playstyle suitable from beginner to advanced for high score runs. It even has the waifu, pilot and ship from the original game, if you're so inclined. The ship variety adds a lot of replay value as each ship plays very different from the next one. But let's not beat around the bush any longer. It's time to see the end boss like I promised. The bad hunch, remember that? Was right, as it's the most disturbing, demented, depraved creation that will leave your jaw open when you first see it. Nothing wild initially, just your garden variety giant fetus gestating inside the container while its defenses try to take you out. But once you take down this initial phase, mutant fetus baby comes out to play, kicking it off with a cry of despair. This is no ordinary fetus, no, as if you couldn't tell. No, it's a Mighty Morphin alien baby that quickly grows giant laser cannons for arms to fire bullet spreads in your direction. And don't think I didn't notice the palpitating gestational walls in the background, as if I'm battling this deformity inside of a womb. But pardon the pun, this is just child's play. Once baby isn't making any headway to your destruction, it's time for the Megazord, as it morphs into a giant pulsating oozing monstrosity with its intact baby head at the core. And here is where it truly unleashes a barrage that will put your skills to the test and kill many a 1cc run. There's just a lot going on, and you'll easily get cornered again, with no means of escape since this giant, pardon the pun again, abortion of a boss tries to mow you down with little room to maneuver. Once you take out enough appendages, you'll know it's almost destroyed when in a dire attempt to survive, it unleashes an army of tiny fetuses that creepily float toward you with their arms outstretched in an attempt to surround your ship. This is some creepy ass shit. Credit to the twisted mind that came up with the designs. I wouldn't want to be privy to the nightmares they dream at night. Overall, the game does have balance issues, with the first few levels being overly easy, but maybe that's good for more to enjoy what it has to offer. The pros outweigh the cons in a game that is just so ridiculous and fun on multiple levels that I keep coming back to it over the years. Highly recommended to see if your skill is great or if you fail it. Okay, I love you, bye-bye. This next pick is one that I personally consider the hardest on the Neo Geo. It's also an absolute classic, as well as being a hidden gem. Kind of like a love child between Zaxxon and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, it'll worm its way into your heart if you let it. And that game is Viewpoint.
1, 2, 3, 4, hit!
Viewpoint is an absolute classic, and I'm not bugging. It's as good as it is hard, which is to say really good and really hard. But it's also one of my favorite shoot 'em ups to come back to over the years, as it's one of the most well-designed overall complete packages in shooting. It ticks all the boxes, if you will. The obvious hook are the unique designs, and they're buzzing with detail. You definitely feel like a spaceship from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in a world of giant mechanical insects to blast your way through. Each level is a detailed environment with its own set of creative enemies and obstacles to figure out. You'll also notice the crazy soundtrack with a cool mix of hip-hop, jazz, and techno upbeat lounge while blasting your way through the levels. At least the first couple levels before the game really starts making you work for every bit of progression. The isometric view definitely takes a bit of getting used to, and dodging in that perspective takes some relearning with nowhere on the screen to flee. See what I did there? But compared to the multiple phase tanky bosses, it's the lesser of two weevils. Oh, okay, I know. You'd think I was making these up on the fly or something. All right, I'll stop now. But as hard as this game can be, it's always fair, and there's a way through what initially may seem impossible. In that way, it shares a lot with R-Type, where gameplay is as much about careful consideration and learning each section as it is about dodging bullets. Every section of a level is a unique puzzle, and there's always a way through with a minimal amount of effort. It simply takes patience and replaying it over and over until you figure out the best way to attack it. And to the game's credit, it keeps you wanting to come back for more. The gameplay is infectious, and you want to try it just one more time with a different approach to see if you can weave your way through. It has this leisurely pace that lends itself to trying over and over again without getting too frustrating, as no one section ever overstays its welcome. So once you make it through, you can start at the next checkpoint. The bosses will really get under your skin and test every bit of dodging prowess you've gained, as they can absorb a ton of shots. Getting good with that partial charge blast and timing is critical to taking them down faster. Each metamorphosis has a new strategy, and they'll put your reflexes to the test. This giant skull is especially heinous and will likely be the barrier for most that never cross without a lot of practice. The third form will overwhelm you real quick if you don't carefully take out the bats right as it spews them out. And the final form is a real pain. Even when you figure out this pattern to follow like I'm doing here, maintaining it without any mistakes until you can finally take it down is an exercise in serious patience. Level 5 fools you into thinking it's a lava stage, and it's got some cool puzzle areas to maneuver through, but it's actually a boss rush, which is something this game didn't need, as they're enough of a pain in the ass the first time, especially that damn skull that I'm none too happy about having to fight yet again. This stage boss is one I find the toughest of all, as I could never find any real pattern or easy way to avoid the sea of bullets that it throws out, besides hunkering down and getting your dodge on until it finally goes down. But the final level is an absolute beast, and one of the toughest gauntlets you'll come across in any shooter. It has multiple sections, each throwing everything in the kitchen sink at you in terms of bullets and creative layout. It's also amazingly fun, and once you figure it out, you'll feel like a pro working your way through, even if you're sweating bullets in the process. It's a good thing you can continue indefinitely, with the MVS version at least, as it'll take countless attempts to not only learn each mini gauntlet, but also have Lady Luck on your side to not get tagged by so much incoming fire. Not much slowdown here to help you out either. The final boss is no slouch either and takes as much practice and patience as anything else. The first phase is reasonable enough, and your indestructible options are incredibly helpful to absorb the incoming missiles. It's the second and third forms that really put you to the test. It's easy to get snagged avoiding the homing orbs while also lining yourself up to squeeze through these openings here. And the final phase has a few differing patterns to throw at you, each one that needs to be learned if you're going to survive. If you manage to save up a couple bombs, this is where you use them to take it out quickly and finish the job. Viewpoint, in my opinion, is easily the hardest game on the Neo Geo, and it's a testament to how well it's made that people keep coming back to it. Normally I'd be here bitching about what a pain it was, but I really just can't get mad at this game. It's charming, and each section is thoughtfully laid out to where you can conquer it with the right amount of learning and patience. It's one of those games that's just fun to play whether you can clear it on one credit or can't get past the third stage. And if you're one of those that can once you see it, more power to you, as this is one brutally tough game to master. It's just a hell of a lot of fun and will have you buzzing to play again. Okay, no more puns, I promised. I'll glow now. My next pick is another game that, much like Polestar, is often called an R-Type clone, but for different reasons. Be that as it may, I really enjoy the gameplay in this one. It plays faster than Polestar and is really tough to take down. And that game is Last Resort. And take a look at the cover art on this. I mean, god damn, this is fire! Forget R-Type clones. Akira, anyone? Not just influenced, this iconic skyline is practically copyright infringement. And to add insult to injury, check out this crater at the end of the same level. First time I played this one, I was just waiting for Tetsuo to come rambling out of there. But instead, I got this flying T-1000 that tried to shoot me down with fire from its crotch. Another thing about this first level is the ability to get extra points by shooting down these poor fleeing civilians in their cars. I get letting you do it, but extra points, really? It's like you're encouraging my sadism now. And apparently, the machines that took over the human weapons and ships didn't bother to dispose of the human bodies inside either, because just about every enemy you kill has a tiny human body that gets flung out when it explodes, which is a really cool idea and would add weight to the proceedings if it didn't look so comical in practice. I'm mowing down these ships by the dozens, and they're flipping up all over the screen like a bunch of lemmings, falling to their doom. At some point, you just want to laugh maniacally as you try to fling as many bodies into the air as you can and see how much slowdown the human detritus will cause. But yes, aside from aping the Akira aesthetic on the first level, you'll notice it has R-Type similarities as well. And unlike Polestar, which simply has a pod that looks like R-Type, here you have the ability to jettison your satellite and use it as a weapon. In fact, it's a critical part of the game and a lot of fun to use. It comes in flavors, a blue ball that bounces off surfaces, and a red that skims along the ground, taking out enemies. So in last resort, your charge shot is shooting out the pod, sort of. It's by far the most powerful weapon in your arsenal and can be rotated to any position around you. Pressing the B button toggles between it remaining locked in place or rotating around as you move. The sooner you master it, the sooner you can see further into the game. The slowdown here isn't as egregious as Polestar, and aside from a very select few spots where it gets really noticeable, you'll have to get good to survive some of the sections, as it won't be there to bail you out. You can't play as defensively here, as your satellite is a smaller shield and your ship is more vulnerable. In last resort, the best defense is a good offense, and turtling behind your pod like in Polestar won't work. The levels aren't overly long, but feature plenty of sections like this one to memorize and test your skill. In fact, I'd say that the toughest sections of the game are like this and require multiple attempts before you figure out the right way through. The bosses aren't nearly as tough, and as long as you have your trusty pod, you can take them down without a ton of effort. Last Resort isn't overly long either, with this massive mothership on level 5 being the final one. It's a really cool layout that has you going inside the ship at times to fight a section, then back out again to continue on, and requires judicious use of your satellite to keep the bullets from getting out of hand. Followed by a high-speed battle through an asteroid field, which I found quite entertaining and a perfect complement to the slower pace of the mothership. Another mini gauntlet to work through, and you've already made your way to the finale. This part can get a bit hairy, but is another overall simple boss once you figure it out. After only 5 brief, albeit cool levels, you may be wondering, that's it? It's over? Not so fast, my friend. Last Resort pulls one of the classic tricks and forces you to beat the game twice to get the true ending. No thanks. I've had my fun, and I got another game I need to pick and play. But first, I do have a hankering to watch my Akira Blu-ray again. Tetsuo! If Last Resort was a brutal yet well-balanced game, this next pick is its bastard cousin. Remember when I said that Viewpoint was the hardest game on the Neo Geo? Well, it is, if you're not counting indie games. The reputation on this next one, titled Last Hope, is so notorious that I couldn't not give it a go. And I have to say that not only did it live up to its reputation, it was the most insanely difficult, maddeningly frustrating, brutal horizontal shooter that I've ever played in my life. So let's check out the most brutal horizontal shooter that I've ever experienced, Born of Hell itself. So let's get this out of the way. How hard is Last Hope? Unless you're a god among shoot-'em-up players, this game will seem like a masochist's wet dream. It's not just hard, it's dumpster fire hard. It's burn down the house hard. It's rip your intestines out with a pitchfork hard. The first 30 seconds of my initial playthrough went something like this. What the hell? Are you serious? I kid you not, I must have died several times in the opening section of the game, just coming to grips with how this game controls. You start off with a ship so slow, it feels like you're oozing your way through a jar of molasses, not piloting a spacecraft. The other thing you'll quickly notice is how tough it can be to tell the difference between enemy bullets, explosions, and shrapnel that flies your way from their destruction. In fact, this game has all sorts of tiny particles that look like background fodder, but can actually kill you. Look at the tiny bullets these guys are firing here. It looks like it would just bounce off your ship, but no, they'll kill you just the same. Or how about these tiny pink squiggles that will also kill you if you come in contact with them? The game is full of tiny particles to thwart your playthrough. But once you come to grips with all these difficulties and learn to somewhat avoid them, it doesn't change the fact that this game will beat you into a pulp and take your lunch money like you're back in grade school. If you thought that something like Polestar was a hard game, Last Hope makes it look like My Little Pony. It was so crazy hard, in fact, that upon initial release, there was an outcry and the developer went back to the drawing board. They released a follow-up, the Pink Bullets version, which is supposedly more balanced and also increases your ship speed at the start. I've yet to play that one, but since this episode is all about the most brutal, I had to try the original first. And it's a shame almost nobody will ever get past the first couple levels, as there are also some things to like here. First and foremost is the music, which is insanely good. It's go pick up the soundtrack good with killer ambient tunes that stands toe-to-toe with games like Polestar. Some of the more puzzle-oriented segments are well designed too, forcing you to become extremely proficient with your pod for protection. And once you figure them out, it's fun to work your way through. Even the bosses are fair in terms of difficulty, and of all the sections, I was able to take each of them down fair and square when starting from the beginning of the battle. Make no mistake, the levels themselves were created by the devil itself. Even if you're incredibly experienced with shoot-'em-ups, it will take many months of constant play to come anywhere near beating this game. To get you some fun footage for this playthrough, after the first couple levels, I literally had to save a state at the start, middle, and end boss of each and every level, so I can play each section over and over from that point to try and get a good run without simply being mauled within moments. I would need to spend hours a day on it for a very long time to ever properly beat this game fair and square. That's how hard this game is. Even with complete and utter cheating just to show you the game, saving states 3 times per level, it was still one of the goddamn hardest, most absurdly difficult gaming experiences I ever had to play. This game is a descent into the 10th circle of hell that Dante himself never fathomed. When it comes to the absolute most unfair, brutal shooters in the history of gaming, Last Hope stands near the top of the heap. An apt title, as you may as well say your prayers before firing this one up again. I'm actually a huge fan of NG Dev Team, and they've come out with some of my favorite shooters on the Neo and Dreamcast. I love Neo Zix, and will showcase that without question when we get to it, along with games like Gunlord. They're one of my favorite indie developers, but this game was a step too far. You can see their signature here with the amazing music and cool designs, which is a staple of their games. But Last Hope isn't just for the hardcore, it's for the masochists of the hardcore. If you can beat this game fair and square, you're either one of the greatest shoot-'em-up gods on the planet, or have spent the last several months of your life eating cat food and never leaving your couch to bathe, while playing it over and over until you pass out for the day. In Last Hope, my skill was definitely not enough. I fail it, for sure. But I urge anyone to check out that soundtrack online. It is cool beyond belief, and it kept me coming back level after level of brutality for more of that sweet torture. Somehow, this video ended up being a bit longer than usual, probably showing off the sweet graphics on some of these Neo games, so I won't drag it out any longer. And please let me know in the comments what you thought of my picks and if there's any game that's brutally tough on the Neo that I totally missed. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell because I've got plenty of more cool consoles and brutal shooters in the pipeline. And if you haven't yet checked out some of my other brutal shooter series for the PC Engine, the Saturn, and the Mega Drive, you can do it right here. I've put a playlist together just for this series. Until next time, smoke 'em if you... I fail it. My skill's not enough. See you next time. Okay, I love you. Bye-bye.